Hey, everybody. Welcome to 90-Minute Cocktail Hour. I'm your host, Mike Guccione. Um, Super excited for today's episode. We have Greg Lorenzo from Lorenzo Media Productions. We talked about all kinds of stuff in this episode. We talked about obviously Greg's path to starting his business. We talked about the balancing act of being a father and running a business in the wedding industry, and then we got into some philosophical things about success. What does success really mean? How to kind of balance the drive to like want more and then also being grateful for what you have. So this is a really fun conversation for me, and I really think I think you guys are all going to enjoy it. So um, before we get into it, just make sure that you like and subscribe wherever you're listening to this. If you're on Spotify, make sure you're subscribed. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. That really helps us out. So, without further ado, here is Greg Lorenzo from Lorenzo Media Productions. Greg, what's up, my dude? Nice
What's
to
up,
have you
dude?
here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm stoked you made time in your very, very busy schedule to do this with me. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm kind of like hiding right now, so this is perfect. Hiding
So,
from the children.
so yeah, Greg has two kids, both of which are sleeping right now. My kids are all at school right now, fortunately. That in and of itself is a miracle that we made time to do this aside from, running businesses and shooting weddings and doing all that stuff. So I'm glad the stars aligned and we made this happen.
For sure.
So
Absolutely.
Greg, you own Lorenzo Media Productions. You have a sister studio as well, Romantic Wedding Studios. um yeah, we met, I think it was like very tail end of last year, beginning of this year. But I had known of you for a very long time. Obviously there's a lot of overlap with the people that we know. And like I said, I'd known about you for a long time. You had really came like very highly recommended, very good reputation, and then we got to work together kind of in like a roundabout way because like you were like kind of pilot testing like another business idea that you
hmm
had at a wedding. I feel like, I mean, we'll get into this, but I feel like you're someone who, we were talking before we started recording, like you have a lot of ideas about like different directions you want to go in, which I think is really, really cool. Um, but yeah, like when I met you that day, I was like, this guy's cool. You know, I think at the time, your wife was pregnant with your second child. So we talked a lot about like family and like balancing, businesses and all that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, before we get ahead of ourselves, why don't you like introduce yourself and then we can kind of take it from there.
Yeah, man. Thank you again for having me, by the way. So yeah, as you said, I own two companies, Lorenzo Media Productions and Romantic Wedding Studios. Lorenzo Media Productions is me actively shooting 35 weddings, doing video specifically. And then Romantic Wedding Studios is my sister company, which is comprised of my team doing photo and video, still primarily video. We're doing around like 130 weddings under that brand currently per year.
Wow.
So I'm just managing the chaos.
Holy moly. I didn't realize it was that many for romantic. That's wild, dude. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um,
Yeah.
so, as I mentioned to you, really the only thing that I have people like prepare for this thing is to just kind of talk about um the path that got you to where you are now. And I encourage as many like detours and twists and turns as you want to include in there. Just because,
Okay.
the reason I started this thing was because, I'm always interested in how people wound up, pursuing a creative career, right? Like starting like a creative
Mm.
business. Um, and I feel like there's a lot of commonalities between us. And on wedding days, we don't always have the time to like sit down and get into this kind of stuff. So, like I said, if you want to kind of start like wherever you want to start, I always tell people like late high school,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
what you kind of thought your life trajectory was going to be versus like what actually wound up
Yeah,
happening.
for sure. So yeah, my household growing up was quite interesting. We were definitely like the most, I feel like, interesting family in the neighborhood because we literally just got my parents, they were like very loving and they like essentially let us do whatever we want with like no rules or consequences, which I feel like could have been super dangerous. But coincidentally, both myself and my two sisters were all entrepreneurs, which is very interesting because we had that kind of like upbringing.
So
And
were
luckily, we
your
didn't like.
not to I'm
What,
sorry to interrupt you, but were
yeah,
your
yeah.
parents also entrepreneurs or were they working like typical 9 to 5?
So my mom was a stay at home mom. My dad was an entrepreneur, and he had a lot of like failures as an entrepreneur. And as I was growing up, we went through like some crazy experiences where we lost our house when I was in high school or when I was in early college, and we like struggled with money. And like I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I said like whatever my dad's doing, I just want to do like the safe 9 to 5. Like I don't want to be doing that at all. But it was like subconsciously, I guess, like in my mind, just observing him all these years, I guess. I don't really know. It's interesting that we talk about this because I don't even really think about this. And all of that to say, I feel like I got to express like a ton of creativity when I was a kid
Mm.
without any like limitations. So like me and my buddies were just like always like doing like the craziest stuff, like just mimicking like the MTV stuff, the typical like MTV like
Like
jackass
Jackass.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was always like a camera in my house that I was always like drawn to. So it's just like me with my buddies just creating like chaotic videos. And I just loved the process of like taking that footage and like making it into something.
Mm.
Like one of my buddies got like a MacBook Pro, and I was like I used it more than he did. Like I was just like so obsessed with like tech and like creating videos. So that was like something I was always drawn to. Um, then in then as I like went into college, like I obviously had to like pick what I wanted to do, and I really like had no clue. So I just kind of said, all right, let me do like communications and kind of like go down the path of like media. Um, I feel like I truly learned nothing in college. I probably didn't utilize it the way that I should have. I didn't really involve myself that much. Like I was quite introverted at that
Mm.
age. And then I and then I got out of college. The closest I got to like production was like an internship at MTV, which sounds way cooler than it was. I really was just like just sitting in a cubicle, like pretty much like doing nothing meaningful.
Mm.
And then after that, I was trying to apply to like big businesses, big corporations in New York, and like just had no luck, and I just like I didn't really enjoy the process of like corporate America. So I wound up getting a job as a cable technician for Optimum. Um, and dude, like that was like the most money I've ever made at that time, like working that job, which was great. But it was like the unhappiest I've ever been in my entire life. I'm not like a physical labor person. I'm very much like a like keyboard and mouse desk kind of guy. So I did that for I think it was like 2 or 3 years until like I absolutely couldn't do it anymore.
Mm.
But while I was doing that, I was saving money and I bought the 5D Mark III at the time, which was like really expensive for like where I was at that stage of life. I think it was like I feel like it was like $2,500 or like 3 grand, and I've never spent that much money on anything. But I just felt like I was watching like so many YouTube videos on like videography and filmmaking. I was just getting drawn into that like algorithm.
Around what
Uh,
time, like what year was this? Like around what time?
um, I would say it was probably like a year or two after I graduated college. I graduated in 2012. So I went to Monmouth University, graduated in like 2012. Um, was kind of like wandering around, didn't like doing like the cable thing, but also like consuming a lot of like YouTube and like a lot of
Mm.
influencers that like I thought was making like really cool things that I enjoyed from my childhood. So I was just like watching them, and I was just so fascinated, like how are they making it look like that, you know? And I kept just like I would just watch like hours and hours and hours of YouTube like in my Cablevision truck, like like these people are like waiting for me to come in and like put their internet back on. I'm just like finishing videos in this truck, like eating a yogurt or something. And then like this one time this lady actually yelled at me, like she saw me just like sitting out front, like just watching videos on my phone. But I was just like obsessed, dude. I was like enamored with it. And
Maybe that's why they had to rebrand.
yeah, that was the whole thing too. But anyway, so I just like I consumed so much information like during that Cablevision job, and then like
Mm,
that parlaying with like buying the 5D Mark III. I got like my first like unpaid gig for like a DJ, just shooting like a little like bridal show promotion for him, and like taking that was like the first step in like pushing myself into this like wedding industry. I built like one relationship, and then somebody saw that video, and then I built another relationship, and it just like slowly stacked. And then I was able to save like a decent chunk of money between like what I made from the Cablevision job and what I was making just like a little bit on the side. And then I took like the big leap of like quitting the job and then just like
mm.
going like into my business like full time. And like luckily like I never had to like touch the savings. I was able to like tread water and then like slowly grow from there.
So that's awesome. So I want to go back to something you said um, at the very beginning about like your childhood and feeling like you were given a lot of freedom to try things, right? Because I either like consciously or unconsciously, I feel like I had kind of the opposite experience, and it wasn't because like I don't know, it's it's funny because I don't ever really know what avenues I'm going to go down in like my life too when I do these things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I kind of felt like there was a very specific path that one had to follow in order to be like successful in life. And my dad worked, regular business hours. My mom was a teacher, so she, worked like a pretty consistent job. So I didn't have like the entrepreneur life kind of modeled for me. But like you know, what my kids are getting to experience is like kind of the opposite of that. And I feel like it's really cool. I mean, obviously it sounds like it came with its own set of um stress and difficulties like for you and your family. Um but I just like the idea that kids are kind of in an environment that like they're free to kind of like test and experiment and like make mistakes and like screw things up,
Mm-hmm.
and like, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I was gonna say, especially now, like in 2025, like
Mm,
back then, like everything that you're saying, I feel like made a lot more sense. And now, just like with how far the internet has come and just how many more like independent opportunities there are to pursue, I feel like you have to let your kids be like creative like that and like explore everything, because before it was like very structured. There were very straight and narrow paths to walk. Go to college, do this. But now like you could make like 50 grand a month like in your bedroom like easily, like doing something like on the internet. It's like obviously you have to get good at it and learn the skill, but like there's just so many crazy opportunities now. You could be a YouTuber, like that's a real, like if you were to say, if I was to say I was going to be a YouTuber in like 2012, um people would be like, it's not like a real career. But now
yeah.
like those kids are making like 100 grand a month. Like it's like it's like
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like management companies now for influencers on like Instagram and TikTok. Like, you know, it's different. It's different. And what I love is like I see it in my oldest son. Like he has that like entrepreneur spirit already. And like he's 7, but he's always like thinking in terms of like, well, I'm gonna save this much money so that I can get like, so that I can get a quad. And we're like, we want to support that, but also, dude, like I didn't grow up riding quads. Like I don't know how to ride a freaking quad.
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah.
requires like a trailer and a tow hitch, and like also I should probably be able to like come with you, because you're 7.
Yeah.
But like I just love the idea that he's like thinking in a way that like I didn't think when I was
Right.
a kid,
Yeah.
and it took me a long time to unlearn um a lot of the ideas that I had about, you know, how I could support myself and my family, and
Mhm.
I feel like I spent a lot of like my 20s doing that. Like I spent a lot of my, I kind of was in a similar boat with college. Like, I went to a really good college, but I like to do what I'm doing now. I did not have to spend that time doing that. I had
Mhm.
had great experiences and I'm grateful for the education, but like, I you could make the argument that I'd be exactly where I am now without having spent all that time and that money. Or like I
Yeah.
could have wound up in a similar situation having not spent all that time and that money. So, I feel like there's this interesting rebound effect of like our generation. I think I'm a little bit older than you, but like our generation being like, I feel like our parents were very much like, well, no, you have to go to college. Like you have to get a college education. Like that's key. And then, we kind of went through that and like, you know, oh, by the way, like huge like global recession and then, like global pandemic, like just kidding, like you can't afford a house now, like haha.
Mhm.
Oh, and also you're like in $100,000 of debt.
Mhm.
Um, so like our generation is kind of like, well, wait a second, like maybe that wasn't the key. Like maybe there's another way to do this. And so like like coming back to like what you were saying before, I just really love that idea of not that there shouldn't be like boundaries and limits, but the idea of like creativity should be encouraged and like different avenues and paths should be encouraged.
Yes, 100%. And also too, like, I feel like having like a side hustle, like when you're that young, and if like you're not sure like what to do, like get yourself on a path that's like supporting you, when you're in like your early 20s, like that cable vision job that I had, and then like relentlessly pursue different side hustles until you find the one that you just absolutely love, and then you can trade from the thing that you hate to the thing that you love, and you can transition without it being too risky.
Right.
I feel like that's something that I'm very fortunate that I got to experience in that way. Cause like, when you're in your early 20s, like I really didn't like start my career. I didn't even really officially like start that side hustle journey until I was like 24. And and I feel like if I like had I thought about this maybe like in high school, I could have learned that I enjoyed this stuff a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Especially now, like it's crazy how many kids are like 18 years old doing like insane things with their careers already.
Yeah.
Like I watch these podcasts all the time. Like there's a kid making like $2 million a month because he built something like on the internet. Like it was just like he's like 18. He's actually a senior in high school making $2 million a month. Like there's stuff like this stuff is like out there. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's like just so many different things you could pursue now.
Yeah. And honestly, and this is maybe something that's unique to me, but I feel like other people have kind of resonated with this too. There was like so much emphasis on like finding a career path, or at least like I put so much emphasis on like getting let's call it getting results, right? So like getting good
Hmm.
grades, making everything kind of look good on the outside, right? Like playing the sports, doing the clubs, doing the activities, getting the good SAT scores, um, and feeling this pressure of like, well, I have to kind of funnel that into some sort of career path when in
Right.
reality, like I really had like no concept of like who I was outside of that like achiever
Hmm.
identity, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
And so like a good part of my 20s I spent kind of like, yeah, unlearning everything that I had learned, but also just kind of like doing the things that I didn't get to do, like early on. And like
Hmm.
when I should have been like trying, like that's when I bought my first DSLR camera. I bought like a Canon Rebel. I don't know what it was, but it was, like one of the very first like Canon Rebels.
Yes.
Um, and I bought like, I bought it on Amazon right before I went on this trip to Australia with like a bunch of my friends from high school. And, I didn't know what I was doing with it. I shot it in like auto or program mode the entire time, but
Hmm.
like, I got home and I was sitting on all this cool like content and I was like, wow, this is like really, really fun. And it was around that time
Yeah.
that people started asking me like, hey, can you just do some like photos for me? Like I have like a band, or, I had one friend who was like a poet or like a spoken word artist, and he just needed some like, photos for whatever he needed them for. And so, yeah, like it kind of started that way. And then, eventually someone comes along and says, "Hey, do you do weddings?"
Right.
And, like I was like, "No, but I'll do it." And, we were talking before about, or I had said to you, like, some of the common themes that have like come up on the podcast. And I feel like one of the common ones that comes up is, and I'm curious to see if this was like your experience too. Um, like, the first time I got asked to shoot a wedding, I was like, "No, I don't know. I don't shoot weddings, but I'll do it."
Uh-huh.
Like, so I'm curious, like, what was that first experience for you?
It's interesting. Yeah. What was one of my friend's cousins, I guess knew that I kind of did this stuff, and he asked me to shoot a wedding with him. So I said, okay, cool, I'll do that. And I actually had a Rebel too. I had like a Canon T4i. That I should say that was actually the first camera that I had. So I used that, and I shot a wedding with him. And honestly, like this dude had like no clue what he was doing. And I'm like, dude, like I'll do it. Don't worry. Like here, let me get this shot. Like I was just like I couldn't believe like they trusted this guy to like shoot the wedding, right? And then we shoot this wedding, and then I was like checking in with him because I was like this was when I was at the MTV internship, and I was like, how's that? How's everything going? Like putting it together. He's like, oh, I haven't gotten to it yet. I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm thinking to myself like, this guy's like never gonna like finish this. Like he's just super irresponsible. Like I still can't believe they trust him to shoot this wedding. So I'm like, what if you pay me and I'll edit the whole wedding for you, and I'll do it on the bus on the way back and forth to MTV. And he said sure. And I think he paid me like $800, which I think was pretty solid actually at that time. I don't even think I spend that much money on edits, but he paid me $800. I edited this whole thing together on the bus. I literally like poured my whole soul into it. I think the client was like really happy about it. And then like I remember just like getting the $800, and I was like, whoa, I need to do more of this.
Mm.
I forget your original question,
Well, that
but that
was
was like
kind of
my
it. Yeah.
yeah, that was the first wedding that I ever did. And then the next one I did, so that gave me like a little bit of confidence. And I was, because I was always like a decent editor. I was always like editing videos, so I knew I could like put something together. I literally did the whole thing in like iMovie, like the most putting it to amateur way of putting it together.
Well,
And
if it
then
makes you feel any better, I was editing weddings, my first few weddings in Aperture on uh on Apple, which was like,
did
it
you?
was, in fairness, it was like the step above like the iPhoto app, but like
Yeah,
they stopped supporting it like a long time ago. So
really? That's
yeah.
funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and then I had another one, which was a friend of mine that I used to work with. She had her sister's wedding, and like that was the first time I like got my own wedding, and like I literally almost missed her walking down the aisle. Like I'm like just so like just like ignorant, like like getting shots of the church, and then I see like her mom, and I was like, oh, Mrs. Bruno, when do you think they're gonna start walking? When do you think the ceremony's gonna start? And then you just hear like the organs playing, and she goes, I think it's gonna start now. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. And then I ran to the front of the aisle and literally just caught the bride, like the last like 2 seconds of her like walking down the aisle. So there was that. And just little by little, like I like luckily I feel like I had a lot of confidence from my childhood, because like I just got to like take my own direction and just like stack upon that confidence, which I'm definitely grateful for. And I don't know, I was just very like ignorant, but had I not had that ignorance, I feel like I would have been too afraid to do these things.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of like what I was getting at, like the universe kind of like protects you in a way, right? Like,
Hmm.
you're kind of shielded uh from knowing all the different ways that you can screw it up. And
Yeah.
which is good because I feel like if we were all like instilled with that knowledge or that fear from the get-go, like no one would get into this. Um,
I wish
because you've been
I wish I was that way now, dude. Because like now, I'm too aware of things for my own good. I feel like
Mm,
I miss that childlike ignorance because those are the things that like light the fires and like start things from happening. Like you actually need that
yeah.
to a degree, you know?
Well, I don't know about you, but I feel like there was this kind of weird thing that happened, right? Like, so I kind of started with like, you know, that childlike ignorance. Although I have to say I had a lot of anxiety starting like the first few, especially the first few weddings that I did, and the first one in particular because it was a destination wedding. So there was a lot of, you know,
That's scary. Just
yeah,
getting there
there's
with
a,
your gear is like intimidating.
well, honestly, I mean, at the time, I literally just had like my Canon Rebel and like maybe one other lens and a
True.
flash, and like that was it. So, like,
Carry on.
yeah, exactly. But for me, yeah, so like it was really more the, I don't know, just like the logistics and being somewhere new and like somewhere unfamiliar. Um, so that was kind of like, it was a big leap into something that I really was unfamiliar with. Um, but yeah, there's still that like like you said, that childlike ignorance of not knowing, like, you don't know what you don't know. And
Hmm.
then at a certain point, you kind of start to like you start to see some things happen, right? You start to see things go off the rails on wedding days in different ways. And then, I don't know, for me, what happened was then the fear starts setting in of like, well, I have to, do this and I have to do this and I have to make sure I have this and I have to make sure I have that. And like, you know, and I don't know if that anxiety really subsided for a long time. I think what started to happen was after I decided to go full time, and I like threw myself like into this, and I was like freelancing for a bunch of different studios, and I was, shooting like, 50 to 60 to 70 weddings a year. And then you start to see all the different things that can happen. You start to see everything, like you run the gamut of like all the things that can happen and go wrong or go right on a wedding day.
Hmm.
And you realize that like there really isn't anything that can happen for the most part that you can't recover from, at least in
Hmm.
my experience. And so I think like for me, I eventually kind of got to this point of like confidence in that, like no matter what's going to happen on a wedding day, like I'll be able to recover from it. It may not be ideal. It may not be exactly what was hoped for or envisioned for. But like I will be okay. Like
Hmm.
I will get what I need. Um, and it may not be pleasant when you're going through it. I think honestly, like that's kind of the thing that like the fear that I have now is like in the moment, there's that like, oh God, how am I going to handle this? Or like, making the right decision in the moment. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing that I struggle with now.
Yeah. I don't think that ever goes away. Like I still get anxiety before every wedding. Like
Mm,
I don't think it goes away. I just think you get introduced to um every scenario like eventually the longer you do it, like I've been doing it like I think like 10 years or a little bit longer. Like you eventually get put in every type of situation, and then you eventually get put in every type of situation more than once, and then when you're in that situation you're like, okay, I know what to do with the dress now because I've been in this situation before. So like an example is like you walk into a hotel room, there's no space at all, there's clutter everywhere, you can't find anywhere to hang the dress, and you're just like sweating it out trying to put together the best worst shot possible. And but what I've learned is, okay, there's five bridesmaids in this room. At least one of them is going to have a nice clean empty room that I can go to. Let me go ask one of them for their room key and move the details there, and that's only going to take like 10 minutes. So like then so that anxiety like subsides. And then there's like a lot of other like nuanced things that you just like learn over the years, and I feel like it reduces that anxiety significantly. And then I just try to live by like little sentences that I say to myself, where it's like you're noticing these things. The client is very like very unlikely to notice the same like nuances that you're noticing. Like she's gonna, she's just gonna love like the quality that you're producing for her. Like don't stress too much about it and just do the best you
Right.
can, kind of a thing. So like little mantras like that, I feel like help, but I feel like it never goes away completely, and I feel like that's just because you care about what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I think a lot of that anxiety comes from caring and wanting to do a really, really good job. But and I also think that, you know, a lot of times I'm my own worst critic. And but like part of that is because I'm comparing, what I'm doing on any given day to like every other wedding that I've shot
Hmm.
before. And like different parts of different days like are, you're always thinking about, or at least I'm always thinking about the ideal, right? Like I'm always thinking about like, what would be like the ideal shot here. And you can't always get the ideal shot.
Right.
Um, but like you said, that example with like the hotel room is like, that's a great example of like something that in the beginning I never would have thought to do. And
Hmm.
then, nowadays, like, I'm in the same boat. Or like, if there's no place to hang if the hotel room is really nice and there's no place to hang the dress, I'll just have the bride hold her dress and just
Hmm.
let her like kind of,
Exactly.
you know, just let her hold it and, you get a nice clean shot of the dress and then, she's in the shot
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Additionally, when she gets her gallery back, like she's just looking at the whole gallery. She's not like scanning, okay, where's the dress shot? I don't see it. And then another another mantra that I feel like has brought me comfort too is I always say like it's actually impossible to have a wedding day go 100% perfect. It's just impossible. It's never going to happen. So I'm always just shooting for like 85 to 90% perfection.
Mm.
And I feel like that, and then knowing that 10% is out of my control brings me comfort, because if there's a certain part of the day where I'm like, this looks horrible, I'm like, all right, there's my 10%. The rest will be fine. And then
I feel like that's
horrible to me is different than like what they deem as horrible
well,
too.
yeah, exactly. It's still gonna have even even if it's horrible, quote unquote, it's still gonna
Yeah.
be cinematically horrible.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. It's gonna be the most beautiful horrible they've ever seen.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, all right, so that you kind of touched on something there, like, and it's something that I can kind of struggle with too, right? Like throughout the day, kind of ticking off, or checking off boxes in my head of like, different shots that I feel like I need to get, right? So, like, but what are some ways that you I'm always well, let me say it this way. I'm always looking for ways to like be creative and also make sure I get the things that I feel like I need
Mhm.
to get. Like, staying within somewhat of a framework, staying within somewhat of like I got to get right. Like you do have to get the details. You do have to get the dress shot. You want to get like some nice candids of, of all these things that are happening. So like how do you kind of balance making sure you get what you need to get? Like you get a consistent product, but also like maybe push yourself
Creatively and
creatively.
elevate
Yeah.
your portfolio. Yes, yes. I feel like I went through like almost like a depression at one stage, like thinking about that. Because then you start to like compare yourself to like other people, and you're like, whoa, that's really cool. Like, how come I'm not doing that, or things like that. I do feel like it's really important, like what you said, to stick to a framework, because that's what's going to bring you the comfort and confidence to try the thing that's new.
Mm,
And what I would say is just look for one new thing to try at once, instead of like feeling like you got to try like three things at one wedding.
mm,
So like for me, like one of like the style of my work changed when I was like going through that period of my career. Maybe this was like 5 or 6 years ago now, but I started to like I really liked the idea of having like static shots, like
mm,
shots where the camera is just like sitting perfectly still on a tripod. I create like a really unique frame, and then I just let the action happen like in the frame, even like sometimes like move out of frame kind of thing. And I thought, I was like, I thought about like how to implement it, and the way that because before that, everything was like on a gimbal, like with motion, and I'm like, I don't want everything to be moving. I wanted like create some variety. So like what I did was like, okay, instead of me shooting on a gimbal in the morning during prep, I'm going to force myself to shoot on a tripod. And it was like really uncomfortable. Like I was actually like really like out of my comfort zone doing it. But that was I said like that's the only part of the day that I'm going to do this. And then I wound up like really liking it, and I got more comfortable, and then it became like a new skill set that I had, and it became like a part of my like style and identity that like separated me from everybody else, because
Mm.
everybody did motion. That's why I wanted to do it differently. And then I was able to I worked with my wife for like 10 years shooting weddings. Now she's with home with the kids, but then I eventually had that be like her role as like a second shooter. So that way, like that's another, like I can like outsource that off my brain, give it to somebody else, and then I can make sure like I'm getting what I need to be getting as well to implement that. So like I feel like there's a degree of like you want to like think about it before going into it, and then like don't add too much to the equation. Just add one little piece at a time,
Mm.
but but create a format that you can stick to, because I feel like that's what builds the confidence to be able to like try those creative things.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to approach it. In terms of like photography, I think about it in terms of like, um, one of the things that I feel like shifted, especially in photography over the last like 5 or so years, maybe, I don't know, maybe less than that, is, using like direct flash. Like for a while, especially during receptions, it was all like bounce flash, um, getting like a very even exposure over like the entire room. And then, you know, the style of just shooting the flash like directly in people's faces started to come
Hmm.
back. And like when I first started seeing it again, I like it just looked like it looked weird to me. But the more I saw it, the more I was like, this is actually kind of cool. And I think like part of that was and part of people wanting that like film look is for our generation, it kind of reminds us of like shooting with disposable cameras and like getting that, kind of like having that nostalgic feeling, right?
Yeah.
Like getting those like prints back from like the 1 hour photo or wherever we went to.
Hmm.
Uh, and I remember when I first started doing it, it felt weird and I reserved like maybe a small part of the reception for that.
Hmm.
And after kind of seeing people really gravitating towards those shots. And actually, there's a really funny story with a mutual friend of ours, Alex, Adalia Photography. She, when I first started shooting for her, her style is definitely more like on the classic kind of timeless end of things. And I
Hmm.
remember like maybe 3 years ago when I first started shooting for her, I asked her if she was into, the direct flash, like shutter drag. And she was like, no, like not really. So I was like, okay, fine. Like I won't do it. And then
Hmm.
like a couple weddings later, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to
Hmm.
like throw a few in there.
Yeah.
And the client wound up loving them and like including
Nice.
them on like a full spread in like one of the albums or whatever.
Nice. That's
It,
awesome.
yeah. And then, so yeah, anyway, like I started to like, so that style like slowly became a bigger and bigger percentage of my reception workflow. And
Hmm.
then it's made its way into like my portrait workflow now too, because people kind of want that like moody editorial style now too.
Yes.
Um, but like when I was first doing it, I was like, this is really weird. This feels super uncomfortable. I don't like this.
Yeah.
Um, but it like grew on me. It grew on me quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, and then it becomes a little bit more second nature the more you get
Yeah.
used to it, and then you actually build upon that skill set stack, and you improve at that and become more elite at that type of shooting. And what you said about how the client loved it and added it to their album, like that's kind of like the North Star that I always use,
Mhm.
is like my market feedback. So like you'll know if you're doing the right thing based on the way that like the market reacts to it. So like I really try to take my opinions out of things, and I try to take like my emotions out of things. And when I put things out there, like I try to I try to just do it from a perspective of, is this what the market wants? You know, because like it's what like I feel like you have to find a balance between doing something that you enjoy, but also doing something that the market wants, or else nobody's going to want to book with you, you know? So it's like I try to find the balance between the two, you know, to make sure that I'm appealing to the majority of the market. Because like somebody might like a style that's like really, really interesting and really, really unique, but that might only be like 5% of the wedding market that actually wants it. So I
Right.
try to make sure that I find the balance between like, what do I enjoy, and are there enough pool of people that are willing to pay for this too? So
So,
it's a
so
balance.
you seem, and I feel like I already kind of knew this about you, but you seem like someone who's very as like creative. As much as you have that creative muscle, you also seem like someone who's very like practical and like process driven. So, like, have you always been that way, or did you have to
Oh,
kind of like
dude,
develop those
I,
skills?
I suck at it and I hate it, dude. I really do. Like, I'm actually not good at it. I'm not good at being a uh now the term is escaping me. An operator. I'm not a good operator. I actually don't enjoy operations at all, but I have to do it or else everything falls apart. So like for me, like if I could just snap my fingers and change my role, um, I I still enjoy shooting and being creative. I love marketing. Like I would just love to take like my best shots, create marketing material out of them,
Mm.
and just try to get people to react to it and inquire to the business. Um, I don't mind sales, but eventually I would like to not do sales. Um, and that's pretty much it. Like if I could just do and build new endeavors. I love building, like building new
Mm.
businesses. Like those are the things that I actually enjoy now. Everything else, like I would love for somebody to just like run the show. Like I'm just like that. That's the part that I like actually don't enjoy doing. But I've had to like become like a decent operator in order to grow to this degree and have things run efficiently. So like you know things don't fall apart. I remember like when I've always done like 35 weddings, and I remember maybe it was like 2018, I felt more overwhelmed with 35 weddings at that time than I do now with 150. And that's because I had no systems and processes in place. I was still doing all of the editing myself. So it's super important to, I guess, build that skill set too. So you can give yourself the room to like be able to think about, new things and how you want to grow your business too.
So, what was like the catalyst that made you want to branch out from, Greg Lorenzo or Lorenzo Media and then start romantic wedding studios?
I just like I'm just like a builder at heart, I think. I think that's like the thing that I really get excited about is like taking an opportunity from nothing and making a dollar. Like I like with it. Like that to me, like that's so cool. Like I love like building something from absolute scratch and then getting somebody to say that they want to buy it. Like I
Mm.
just like that whole process to me so exciting. And then with like romantic wedding studios, like it was always in the back of my mind because I would cap myself at 35 weddings because I just like for me personally, I just can't and really don't want to shoot more than that. Um and um and I just get so many people that like once I fill up my calendar, like I can't book them or they're outside of my budget and they don't want to pay like for my pricing. And I've like if I always knew like if I had a team at like a different set of pricing and I can be at like two different places at once, like offering the same type of product, I felt like it could be pretty successful. Um, and sure enough, like that was like one of the only things I've ever done in life that was like successful, like out of the gate. Like I think our first year, like we might have booked like 60, like the first year or something like that.
Wow.
It was like, yeah, it was just, because I had all the infrastructure in place already with Lorenzo Media Productions.
Mm.
Like really the only thing I did was like, create a new brand name. I essentially mirrored my website, with like the same layout. So I had like a guide to go off of. And then the hardest part was really like just recruiting people that like I thought were good. So that took the longest. But like over the years I've developed like an eye for talent, I feel like. and I could just tell like, okay, this person would be good, like if they shot this wedding. And then I just built like a roster, and I feel like I created like a structure that like worked with like the numbers for them, worked with the numbers for me. And then I felt like we could put like a good team on the field and like a good product. And sure enough, like it did well. So like so that was like pretty cool. And now I've created a monster that I'm like just trying to tame. So that's kind of where I'm at currently.
Well, I mean, that's pretty unbelievable, that it scaled that quickly. Um, I so like what were some of the early like what was the biggest learning curve for you? Like was it the operational
Yeah,
piece?
for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, yeah. And I'm still experiencing that learning curve. Like right now, like I'm doing too much right now, and I need to figure out the next piece. So I'm like literally like interviewing like virtual assistants like as we speak, but like my brain just like I'm really good at like thinking about like how to build things and all of that
Mm,
creative stuff, but like my brain just like is so bad at computing like the operations. So it's such a mental drain for me to like um to grow in that manner. So yeah, I mean, like that for me personally, that's my big learning curve. Like number one, I don't enjoy operations, so I'm like forcing myself to get better at it. And then number two, it just takes a lot of patience and a lot of like like focusing on what needs to be done next while like you're just moving through all of this fog of difficulty. Like
mm,
I feel like that's like the difference between like what makes somebody successful and what makes somebody like never really achieve the thing. It's like the consistent idea in your mind of like what needs to be done, and then like pushing through the resistance to actually complete that thing. So like for me I get like 50 emails a day, and it's so easy for me to just like get lost in all of that and like all of the different like other operations that I'm doing and never actually hire this person. But like if I can just like stay the course and like not forget that I need to hire this person and just like keep focusing on it, this person will bring me so much more clarity, and
mm.
then I can continue to grow it further. But it's like like it's like you have kids, and then like your spouse wants to like hang out with you, and like like you have all this other stuff, you're shooting all these weddings, like there's just like all these things, and it's like it's so much easier to just like say I'll just keep doing the way that I've been doing things, like that's just like what's working. But I feel like the thing that gets you to the next stage is always going to be so blurry and so hard to push through the resistance to get to, but that's the thing that like we always need the most in order to like get to the next level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And the way that like I kind of think of it. So, part of the reason that I've always been more of a freelancer than like a business owner, at least when it comes to weddings, is I also have no patience for that like operational piece. And
Mhm.
I'm someone who just by nature, like I just want to do the fun part, like just send me to the wedding, let me hang out with all the people, let me do the creative part, let me do
Mhm.
the like adrenaline pumping part. Um and then I'll be happy, like don't get me wrong, like I do love the I guess the sales aspect of it. Like I do love like talking to new people. I love getting people on the phone and like finding out, about their day and, telling them about what I do. But yeah, when it comes to back end processes, like I have
It's not attractive.
no, it's
Yeah.
not fun. It's not sexy. Like it's not, it's none of those things.
Yeah.
Um, and so, and then it's like you said, it's so easy to get distracted by, and it's not, I don't even want to say like getting distracted. Like, like when you have kids and when you have family responsibilities, you just get tugged in like so many
Yeah.
different directions, like for example, this past weekend, my son, um, well, back up, I had booked. family sessions for the Saturday, and then I had a wedding on the Sunday. And my son decides, he wants to go on this camping trip, kind of last minute. And so, guess who's going camping on a Friday night and then leaving, Saturday to go shoot sessions and then go camping again Saturday night and then go shoot a wedding on Sunday, like
Yeah. Yeah.
situations, things that I never would have like fathomed or thought of,
Hmm.
before. Right. And like trying to manage rest and quality time, and then you get home and like the other kids like want to spend time with you because you've been
Hmm.
gone with the other kid all weekend, and
Yeah.
then like the wife is like, "Hey, I want to see you too." Like,
I
and
know.
and it's all of this is valid. All of this is like totally valid, and all these things are like pulling on you for your time and attention.
Yeah. It's dude, if you have the answer, please let me know because I honestly don't know, man. It's like yeah, it's hard, dude. I would say like walking through this path, like it's great that I have like these two companies and like I'm super grateful for it and like I'm certainly like passionate about doing it, but it really does make you value like peace of mind and time, But it's tough too because I just feel like I have the DNA of like like if I'm not tapping into what I feel like my full potential is, I get like a ton of anxiety. Like I feel
Mhm.
like I always have to be like moving and pushing and moving and pushing. Like that's just like I don't know where that even came from. Like that's just like I just have this like baseline of that. And for me, like if I'm not making a form of progress on any given day, like I feel like I can't be present or I can't relax. I feel like I need to like earn that relaxation. It's probably something I should talk to a therapist about, but I just that's just how I personally feel. So I try the best I can to create like cutoff times, carve out a day on the weekend, try to work in the morning early and then try to be done by like the afternoon or something like that. But ultimately, like I am trying to build like a business that is able to live on and grow without me so I can create that like time freedom that everybody dreams of. I feel like that's like my ultimate goal. So that kind of gets me excited to build towards that. It's just so much easier said than done and I feel like there's just always like constant like pivoting that needs to
Yeah.
take place and everything's always changing. So it's tough, man. I feel like everybody goes through it.
Yeah, and it requires you to think long term when you have many, many short term things that need your attention,
Mhm.
and I feel like one of my struggles is keeping space for both, right? Like keeping
Yeah.
space for the things that I need to do on a day-to-day basis, um, and keeping and then thinking long term about um, what I need to do for my business.
Yeah.
Um, hold that thought for 1 second. There's something I need to grab for my
Go ahead.
wife.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I will edit this out. Hold on
All
one
right, that's
second.
fine. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that, dude.
Dude, work-life balance. You're killing it right now.
um, so literally as we're talking about this, my wife asked me to find something for her and something that I told her I would find for her and then didn't find for her. And then she needs it. And so I have to help her find it.
That's that's it, man.
Yeah.
Story of my life too.
Yeah. um, but yeah, like, so thinking long term about things, it's always something that like I've personally struggled with. And you said before, there, like, you should probably talk to a therapist about that. And like,
Yeah.
I always joke, like, for anyone in like some sort of like creative business endeavor, like there's probably something diagnosable happening, particularly in the
Mhm.
wedding industry, because you have to be a little bit crazy to want to put yourself in those like really emotionally charged situations weekend after weekend.
For sure.
Um, but like, I think those things are like our superpowers too, like that
Yes.
drive that you have, like whatever that thing that like won't let you sit still until you've achieved a certain amount for that day or for that week or whatever it is, like that is the thing that is going to make you successful.
Hmm.
And for me, like, I think I don't know that I have that exactly, but for me it's more like, um, I always want to feel like what I'm doing has purpose. So, like, for me, it's really important that whenever I was like thinking about a job or like thinking about a career path, like, even when I was, you know, kind of way off base with like where I thought I wanted to be, the thing that was always constant was like wanting to feel like what I did was important.
Hmm.
And, so I still have that today, obviously. And I feel like that kind of informs like the way that I approach every wedding day, every session that I do, like just wanting to, um, yeah, like the reason I want to put myself in those positions is because I want to feel that what I'm doing is important. And I feel like as wedding photographers, videographers, capturers of that time, like I feel like that's a really big important role that we play, not only in like
Yeah.
business, but in like society.
Yeah. No, 100%. Alex Hormozy, Alex Peterson went to that workshop,
Mhm.
but I consume like a ton of his content. And like from like a leadership perspective for any company, they always say how important it is to explain to each person and teammate like how you specifically impact the brand or the business, because yeah, like everybody needs to know like why they're here and what the purpose is. Even if it's for yourself, like you need to know, like I like sometimes I try to like I get like lost in the weeds of all this work, and then I have to remind myself like don't make it about me and like my needs. Like you're doing a service for other people, it should be about them, and then your needs will be served as a byproduct of doing a good job for them. So that's something to I feel like is really important to keep on the top of your mind when it comes to um, anything that you're doing. Like that's the most important thing is purpose.
I can't tell you how many times I've felt kind of, you know, like maybe off on any given day, or not feeling like super motivated. Um, and then I have a session that day and I'll go to the session and I'll shoot the session and I'll just leave feeling like so
Well,
energized and so
yeah,
you know, like, wow, that was awesome. Like
yeah,
leave feeling with like more energy than I got there with. I
yeah,
can't always say the same for wedding days because they're just like so long, but but even with some wedding days, I leave, kind of riding that high or that adrenaline rush or, whatever it is. Um,
yeah.
but like I would say more often than not, I'm given more than I give,
Yes,
if that makes sense.
yes, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I think it's just a fundamental of being a human being. Like it just feels good to give somebody something. And when you know like you're doing that to the best of your abilities and you've created something like very like unique and special for somebody, it's like a win-win. Like, you're benefiting from it because it makes you feel good and you're being compensated, and then it makes them feel good because like they're getting something like invaluable that they'll have for the rest of their life. And it was, captured in such a unique way. So I feel like that's what makes the world go around when it comes to uh just like every single like goods and services that are offered. Like I feel like the goods and services that last are the ones that are mutually beneficial to both parties,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Um, so I feel like this is a really good question for you. And I feel like well, I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but like one of the things I always kind of like start to wind down the conversation with is like, so where do you see this going for romantic wedding studios, Lorenzo Media Productions? What's your, 5-year plan, 10-year plan? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I would like for Romantic Wedding Studios to be a national company. So the goal is to scale it into other states. and be able to do a very large amount of volume without any downgrade in quality. So that's my true goal. Lorenzo Media Productions, I truthfully probably want to scale myself down a little bit, and try to get a little bit more into like the luxury space. So I think I would take on less and be more patient with my own bookings, and focus just more on luxury weddings if possible. So that would still keep me active shooting, but I would be doing less weddings, for hopefully equal or more compensation. And then I want to also have the people that shoot with me in New Jersey and New York doing corporate work during the week when they're not shooting weddings, because I have some ideas for like marketing content for like restaurants and like other businesses. We just recently did something like that. So that's the goal for now. And then big picture would be to generate enough invested income where I can live off of 4% from like a stock portfolio, and then have like full financial freedom, and then use that time and that like those financial resources to just wake up every day doing whatever it is that I feel like doing. That's like, I literally think about that every single day. So that's what I'm striving towards. We'll see if that changes. But yeah, just like my ultimate goal is to wake up every day doing exactly what it is that I want to do, and do nothing that I don't want to do.
I like the way you put that. Um, and I love like that you're not limiting yourself, and like you're thinking big and you're like talking about it and like it's an achievable thing.
Mm-hmm.
So and I don't know. I feel like I have a very similar goal, at least in terms of, wanting to wake up every day and like not do the things that I don't want to do, like, and like do the things that I want to do. Um, like I feel like there's a falsehood that a lot of people have. And well, I'll just speak for myself. I feel like for a while I kind of thought that without work there wasn't a purpose, right? And then what I found, so I actually went through a long period of unemployment, and what I found was I was able to fill my days with things that were like very fulfilling, that had absolutely nothing to do with work.
Hmm.
So I feel like I'm able to keep like work and like fulfillment, like those aren't like mutually exclusive for me, even. But and so like for me, if I am going to be working, like it has to be fulfilling, if that makes
Yes.
sense,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Um, so I think like what's really interesting, and I think what's kind of like looming around the corner, and like I don't know, this conversation might be taking a little bit of a turn here, but I feel like a lot of people are kind of like having that realization now, especially with like the advent of like AI and like all these automations happening in our economy, right? Like where does fulfillment, or where does like happiness come from, right? In your life,
Mm-hmm.
if it doesn't come from a job or from work.
Yeah, man. It's funny. I literally just listened to like Elon talk about this on a Rogan podcast recently. And like they were literally talking about that. Like if AI does what everybody thinks it can do, not just like digitally, but like also robotically, the next thing that people are going to think about is like, well, what's my purpose? And and also it's interesting that you said that too, because I all like everything that I just said that I want to do from a goal standpoint, I follow this YouTuber who has like a successful business, and he I think he sold it to somebody else, and he got like the financial freedom that that like I'm striving towards. Um, and then I saw him make another video saying that the whoever he sold it to had to like sell it back to him. It wasn't working out, and then he kind of got back into it. But he said like in that video that he made explaining it, like during those 2 years, he felt like very unhappy, like without
Mm,
like because he didn't have any purpose essentially. And I DM'd him, I messaged him, and he actually responded back to me. We had like a little conversation back and forth, which was really cool because he was like very transparent about like money and like all this other stuff. He shared like a lot of things with me that like I wasn't expecting him to share. And essentially like what he said to me was like I've come to the conclusion that like we do need a purpose, even if like we don't have to worry about money anymore. Like we need
mm.
some kind of purpose. He's like, that's what I've experienced over these past 2 years. And he's like a religious I'm not sure if he's Catholic, but he's like a religious person. He just says like it's biblical, like man needs purpose. And I thought that was pretty interesting, and it made me think about my path a little bit differently because I also don't want to be that person that, you know, like didn't stop to smell the roses along the way to get there too.
Yeah, and I think it's important, and like the way you frame that just now is really important because I think one of the like mischaracterizations I had for a long time was like purpose had to be this like big lofty thing, and it doesn't. You know, it could be as simple as like stopping to enjoy the small little things in life, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it can be being a member of a community, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
being like just playing your role in your community, right? And playing your role in your family, right? Like
Yes.
those are all like really important purposes, right? And like and those were things that like before I became a husband and a father, I didn't realize those were things that I was also craving. Um,
Yes.
you know, um, so I think like purpose doesn't have to be this big lofty thing. It can be something very simple and like meaningful to you.
Totally agreed. Yes. I do think so too. Yeah, I don't think like that person's testimony that I was talking about is default for everybody.
Hmm.
I think everybody defines purpose differently and to different degrees. But yeah, I just think like you have to be challenged in some kind of a way, you know? I think you have to be just like testing your abilities, you know, when it comes to the purpose that you seek. I think that's like I think all humans are always looking to evolve just by default. Um, but yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like I don't know. Even if it is a little bit ignorant, I feel like I'm trying to not live too much in reality because I don't know. I feel like the more I lose my childlike ignorance, I feel like the more unhappier you become in a way. You know, I feel like you
Mm,
need that intact.
yeah. No, I I agree with that. And I feel like having kids, at least for me, has like kind of snapped me back into it's funny like being at the age that we're at, right? Because well, again, at least for me, like, my I still have my parents and I have my kids and then I have myself and I feel like I'm parenting my kids. I'm like reparenting
Your
myself
oh yeah,
and then I'm like parenting my parents
yeah. I
too.
parent my parents too. Yeah.
Like that's the role that's like the role that I'm in now in
Hmm.
life is like looking at the way that my kids are growing up and seeing like what they're getting to do and at the same time kind of wishing that like man I wish I would have had that when I was a kid, but then also allowing myself to like do those things so that like I can kind of like relive that experience that I didn't get to have, right?
Hmm.
um so like you're I don't know, not to get like too I don't know, whatever,
Philosophical.
we're philosophical, we're getting weird, but like
Yeah.
getting to like let that inner child like have that experience, like you're not
Hmm.
just having it now, right? Like on a quantum level, like that child inside of you is like having that experience too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but like to kind of get back to what we were talking before, um, like what do you think for yourself? Like if you do, so when you do get to that stage, right, where you're living off of, your goal income, like what are some things that you think will be fulfilling for you at that point?
Um, instinctually, I would just love to take a year off, like a true year off with no stress about money, and see what my brain does.
Mm,
Like I would love that, and obviously, and traveling with that year off and experiencing different things. Like I would love to just give my mind a much needed rest and just see what it thinks, because I feel like right now I'm just in this you know just in this mode of like taming everything that I've built. But and like I haven't, it's been a long time since I've been able to just like let my mind like spark new ideas and think free. Like I feel like that's like what I'm like really like good at, is like I'm very creative. Like I could think about like big ideas and I can build them, and I would love to just kind of like sit on that patiently for a year while I'm just like taking that year off, and like at the end of the year say, okay, this thought reoccurred to me a lot. Like let's go do
mm,
that. Like I just feel like that would be cool. And then maybe you know, like sharing that experience with my son or my daughter, like if they're old enough to like be involved in it, like do it together with them, like something like that. I feel like would be kind of sick.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's I feel like I have to achieve the monetary goals first, because I just want to plant the flag at the top of that mountain to say that I did it. Um but and then beyond that, like I just kind of want to like see if I could just live life on my terms,
Mm.
if that
I'm
makes
gonna I'm gonna
sense.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second.
Do it.
Do
Do
you
it.
think when you get to that goal, whatever that is, that you'll be able to stop?
I ask myself that a lot, actually. I think yes. I think yes. Because like I have like I have no aspirations to build like that far beyond it, really. I mean, it maybe if it was run in such a way where it didn't feel like it was like bogging me down, perhaps. But like I'm starting to like at like once I had kids, and my kids are young. I've only been a parent for like, 2 years and a little bit of change. But I feel like after having kids, like it really makes you think about like mental peace, your the time that you have, um, and like your stress levels. I feel like I just want to reduce stress, create more peace, and then just build more time. You know, and I feel like that's what we all want, inherently. And for me, like I am still crazy enough to think that I can like get to that if I were to create like monetary success. But I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking like that guy that I referenced, and I'm just going to come to the same conclusion that he did. I don't know, but that's kind of my north star at the moment.
Well, I think like there's something really spiritual, honestly, about giving yourself the opportunity to have whatever realization that you would have when you get to that point, right? Like maybe you'll find out that that comfortability isn't what you thought it was, or maybe you'll find out that it is, but you're not going to know unless you do it.
Yeah.
And like kind of reminds me of one of my favorite books, The Alchemist. And it's been a long time since I've read it, but like the gist of the book was like the guy goes on this really wild journey and travels and stops in different places and meets different people, and he's like in search of this treasure, and spoiler alert, like he winds up finding that treasure back where he started. Like he
Mm,
winds up like back where he started, and like that's
mm,
where like the treasure was the whole time. But like he
yeah.
wouldn't have known that if he hadn't gone on that journey, right? So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's certain things that you don't know, like like you don't know it in your heart, you don't know it in your being until you have the experience of it.
Yeah. I feel like I'm almost more excited for the definitive answer than I am the thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
I just want that question to be answered definitively. Like, okay, I know now this, and now I can choose where I want to go. Because right now I feel like I'm being pulled towards it. Like I just feel a pull. But like when I'm there, I feel like I'll be in control of the decision because I'll have that answer like
mhm,
given to me officially, if that makes sense.
yeah, no, it does, and there's also something really romantic. There's something
Hmm.
really romantic about the idea of like giving your brain a year to rest and like see what it comes up with. There's something very like almost like monk like about it. There's almost like a kind of like a Buddhist like I don't know uh feel to that of like once all your basic needs have been met, um like what like where does your mind go? Like
Yeah.
what brings you passion or what like where does the pull come from then?
Yeah. Yeah. Because then you're finally sitting with yourself and you're actually listening to your own thoughts, not what your other outside circumstances are like forcing you to do.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah. That these are the things that keep me up at night for sure.
I don't know, I find it really fascinating, and I'm, like, really, uh, grateful that this went in that direction because I find this stuff really, really interesting too, and I'm speaking as someone who, like, has not built the framework to, like, get to that point financially, like, I'm just constantly winging it and constantly, like, we're doing good, but, like, you know, I just really have a hard time thinking long term about things.
Yeah, man. Honestly, there's pros and cons to it. Like due to everything that I just said, I have a crazy weight on my shoulders every day because of like that takes a lot, and the expectations are really like the pressure to do it. Like I can track how on my way I am, like with my CRM, to know like, okay, am I doing it or am I not doing it? If I feel like I'm not doing it, the amount of stress is like immense,
Mhm,
whereas like for you, like, you're just enjoying day to day, and like we're both going to reach the end of our lives one day. Who's going to be happier, so it's like it's probably going to be you, to be honest, so it's like who, honestly, who knows, man? We're both just trying to figure it out,
yeah.
But I think I don't know. It's like you're doing what you want to do. I'm doing what I want to do, I think. And like it's just like that's it, man. I feel like just be a good person in society, raise your kids well, and like, be good to your family. And it's like, we'll see what happens when we each get there, I guess. I don't know. We're
That's
going
it.
very deep.
Yeah, no, I love it, and honestly, like, that's one of the beauties of doing this is, just kind of allowing the conversations to, like, go wherever they go, and, I appreciate people like you who are willing to, be vulnerable and, like, talk about these, like, philosophical questions because, honestly, like, these are the things that I think about when it comes to, you know, the role of, like, what we do in society, like, from a there's the day to day of like timelines and, the technical knowledge of our cameras and lighting and composition and all that kind of stuff. And all that stuff's really important. But I have always been someone who wants to know like how things work,
Hmm.
not just from a technical standpoint, but from like a philosophical standpoint. I've
Yeah.
just always been curious about how different people approach life and how different people approach this job. And when I first started doing this, I kind of had this inkling or like one of the things that I wanted to explore was like the role of what we do in like a spiritual sense,
Mm.
like and I kind of got into it in like another episode that actually hasn't been released yet, but um we were talking about, like how scribes back in the day, were the people who were like the keepers or the recorders you know, of that time. And I feel like to a certain extent, like that's kind of our role now in society, like
Hmm.
we're the ones who are documenting, in a digital way now, but like we're the ones who are documenting
Hmm.
those things
That's
for
interesting.
people and
That's
society.
interesting. Didn't I never thought of it that way. That's interesting.
In fact, my original concept for the podcast was gonna be the record keepers because that's kind of like
Mm,
how I saw, like,
that's cool.
kind of like how I see or saw like our role in society. But then ultimately, I kind of like wanted the conversations to go wherever they went, and you know, and if that happened to be one of the paths that we went down, cool. But you know, like I to get back to what I was saying before, all that to say, like I'm really grateful to people like you who are willing to get deep.
Likewise, man. No, I'm definitely a very philosophical person, and I feel like I talk to nobody about these types of things. So I appreciate that you're on the same wavelength, and it's important because it's like, you know, like like every day we wake up and pretty much all of our thoughts are surface level. We're
Mm,
just like focusing on what's in front of us, and we're not questioning the meaning of what we're doing hardly ever. And like, I feel like it takes constant questioning to really tap into like what truly like fills your soul with the thing that you want to be doing every day. And that's honestly like what got me out of that Cablevision job. Like, I'm sure if I walked into that building, I'm going to see some of the same people that I saw like 10 years ago, and like maybe they like it, but like there's definitely people there that still don't. And they probably didn't ask themselves enough questions, like they probably didn't, like ever really take the time to like stop and think about, like, like what do I really want for myself? And then like try to go out and do it, But I feel like it starts with like pausing and like looking inwardly and actually like asking yourself like meaningful questions.
yeah, and I feel like for some people, that they have that innately, like they're able to ask themselves those questions innately. Um, and then other people, life circumstances kind of force them to answer those questions. I feel like that was kind of my experience. Like after
Mm,
graduating college and then working for a little bit and then, getting fired and like having this realization of like, well, I did all the things. Like I did the things that I was supposed to do. And like,
yeah.
now here I am. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Um, and from there it was like this slow um kind of rebuilding, unlearning for me. And, that's kind of led me to like where I am now. And and it's funny because I had like a similar kind of job too. I like worked in retail for a period of time to kind of like support myself while I was kind of figuring out what, you know, going full time in photography looked like for me. And yeah, like I'm grateful to those places, but more and more it just I wanted to have the freedom to spend time with my family and work the amount that I wanted to work. Like I
Hmm.
didn't want to feel like I was being forced to be someplace for a certain number of hours per week.
Yes.
It felt like a very slow death for me.
Yeah.
And like there for sure there are times where I feel like tired and burnt out doing this, but like I have the ability to control the valve. Like I can decide how much work I'm going to take on. I can decide how comfortable I want to be. Like
Hmm.
it's within my control to a certain degree.
I think we also forget that we've already won. Like,
Mhm.
like back in the day, I remember saying out loud, like, if I could just like pay my bills with this camera, like I will sign that paper right now. And like I don't need anything else. Like I don't want anything else for the rest of my life. Like I would have signed that paper at that time. And then like sure enough, like you do. and then it's like, but then you want a little bit more, and then you want a little bit more, and then you want a little bit more, and then it's like you figure out how to like forget like that you've already won, you know?
Mhm.
And I feel like that part of it's interesting too. You know, there's so many different. I feel like there's so many different mental balances you need to keep in your mind in order to just kind of like sustain like a level of zen, you know, because it's just like there's just so many different ways to make yourself unhappy also too, you know.
Yeah, well, they're all paradoxes, right? Like,
Yeah.
being grateful, like you've already won, but like also not being content with like the status quo, right? Like
Right.
wanting to push yourself, but also keeping space for this kind of seemingly opposite idea of like, but I've already won.
Mhm.
So yeah, I feel like we're constantly living in a state of paradox, and I feel like that's part of the human experience. But
Mm.
I feel like that kind of sums it up like pretty well. Is like yeah, like I would have been so stoked to I don't know, like again, coming back to this idea for myself of like not being able to ever think long term. I never thought that I would like be married with a house and kids. Like I just didn't I guess I thought like that was the trajectory that I was supposed to go in, but I didn't ever think about how it was going to happen or that it would even happen. I
Mm.
don't know. Like it's kind of a weird thing for me, but now that I have those things, like, and for a while, like being the only person, making, um, money, like my wife was taking care of the kiddos while I was working, like, and I try to be very careful about the way that I frame that because she for sure created the infrastructure like in our home for me to be able to do that, right? And like that work
Mhm.
is equally, if not more valuable. But like to your point of like signing that document of like if you could support your family, doing what you love doing, create and feeling creatively fulfilled by it, like hell yeah,
Mhm.
would have signed that in a heartbeat. And the fact that it's like a
Mhm.
reality is like pretty mind boggling to this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like if you just like if your previous self could just look at you right now, you'd be like, "Damn, like that's amazing. Like I don't need anything else. Like that's
Yeah.
awesome." You
Yeah.
know?
But like also let's increase our prices and book more and let's
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Also like we're not moving fast enough. Like I want this for my backyard, like, you know, yeah, all these things. Yeah, exactly.
oh man, dude, this was such a fun conversation. I really really appreciate you taking the time to do this with me. um and yeah, man, I hope I see you out there. uh
Yes, dude.
like
Likewise.
let's make it happen one of these days.
For sure, man. No, I seriously I appreciate you for like asking more like intellectual questions. I feel like that's pretty cool. I feel like that's totally like your theme for this whole
Mm.
thing. Like getting people to like look more inward at you know, at like their journey and their experience. And I feel like those like that's honestly like more meaningful than like just like the straightforward conversation. So I feel like that's cool, dude. I
Well,
like
I
all that.
appreciate that. And one of the things like the thing I didn't want this to turn into was another education podcast or, like business podcast. I mean, all that stuff's interesting. But for me, like the thing that I love most about this industry are the people that I've gotten to meet along the way. And so, um, for me, it's a lot more fulfilling, honestly, to like hear people's stories. And like you're clearly someone who's more like business mindset. And it's like we got into that a little bit, but yeah, like with different people, like I don't know, I just I want to hear people's stories. And I didn't want this to be just another like education, camera, you know, technology podcast. I just wanted to hear people's stories and see where things went. So
That's cool, dude. I dig
yeah.
it. I like it.
So thank you again, my brother, and I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Thank
All
you as
right.
well.
Take
All
care.
right. Take care, Mike.